Okay, gang, time to play some golf. This video is going to be awesome. We're going to go step by step from each shot, and I'm going to show you all the different options that you have at your disposal when you're out on the golf course. This is really primo stuff, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, we've got a par 4 here. It's about 400 yards, and as you can see, it's a slight dog leg to the right. And I got the wind coming in from the left side. So I have a few different options here. Now, I'm going to take it down the center of the fairway and fade it with the contour of the fairway. There's mounds on the right side that have a tendency to move the ball to the left. So if you draw the ball, if you have a tendency to hit the ball from right to left, you want to take it down the right side and let the contour of the fairway bump it back to the center of the fairway. So we'll explore a couple of those options. And I can basically cut the corner to the green by doing that as well. So if I got the wind in the face, I'm going to play a conservative shot, tee the ball low into the wind. I'll show you that. And then if I wanted to bomb it downwind over the corner, I'll show you that one as well. We'll have the two different scenarios. Let's start with a standard drive. So standard drive, basically, I want the center of the golf ball just slightly above the top of the club face. So I'm catching the ball on a slightly upward blow, okay? It's like a slightly uphill shot. So I've lined up the low of my ball to where I want to go. Down the left center of the fairway, and then use the wind and my fade to bring it back to the middle of the fairway and follow the contour. So I'm going to take a nice practice swing to get the right feel for this shot. I'm going to line up my feet parallel to the name of the ball, and then I want to get the right feel for this swing here. That felt effortless, it felt fluid, uninterrupted. That's the feel I'm looking for. Go to the ball, take one more look at the left center of the fairway, see the ball flight, and remember the sensation of that swing. Here we go. Come on, wind, help it a bit. Just left rough. Not a bad swing though. So let's see that from the front. All right, now from this angle you'll see how I play the ball right opposite my left instep, find the center of my stance, and face my center. And you've seen from the back angle that my shoulders, hips, knees, and feet were pretty much square with each other. This is the only way I'm going to be able to catch the ball in the upswing. Some of your favorite tour players might look like this at address. The hands slightly back, the club head sometimes up in the air, sometimes down on the ground. So, or you might see them play the ball a little bit more back in their stance and then just change and tweak the loft of their club. So I would very much, I'll show you guys when the ball's teed off a little lower, how we can play the ball further back in our stance and have it look a little more standard, if you will, okay? So here that is again. So I remember the feel of that swing for that nice fade down the left center of the fairway. Here we go. Oh, much better. That's left center of the fairway. Very well struck. Very happy with that. Okay. Now we're going to look at if I had the wind in the face and I needed to tee the ball a lot lower, okay, and even if I wanted, like right now, the tee boxes haven't been mown down, I can actually play it right off the deck. So I'll show you those two shots coming right up. So if finding the fairway is an absolute must, and distance is not an issue, when you have the wind in the face or no wind at all, and you need to find the center of the fairway, now you can use the sole of the golf club to your advantage. Just like a fairway wood. You notice the sole of a driver or a fairway wood is very wide and very rounded off. It's the perfect skipping tool. If you had a big puddle of water in front of you and you were to whip this club to make it skip off that puddle of water, it would be beautiful. It would be a very easy tool to skip with. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We tee off the ball very low so that the center of the ball matches up with the center of the club face. And now we're just going to use the sole of the club to deflect or skip across the ground. So if the sole of the club skips nice and flat along the ground, the ball will hit the center of the club face, and voila, you've got a nice straight shot going down the fairway. Very easy to set up. The center of the club in the center of your stance, and the ball just forward of this. And this would be exactly like a fairway would, okay? So here we go. Right down the middle of the fairway, no fuss here. I want the sole of my club to skip through or across the ground. That's the feel I'm looking for. Go to the ball, see the center of the fairway. What was that feel again? Oh yeah, the sole of that club deflecting across the ground. Here we go. Wonderful. Very well struck. Very penetrating ball flight. Right down the middle. So you guys saw how the club deflected across that surface there, okay? Let's have a look at it from behind, shall we? So I'm remembering that sensation of the club skipping across and wide along the turf, wide along the ground. Here we go. Effortless, powerful, whipping skip. Oh, that felt good. Right down the middle, right in the center of the fairway. Very pleased with that. Now, we got one in play. This is basically what you want to be doing on a regular basis. You'll see how a lot more the new drivers with a very wide sole, what we call a moment of inertia. So the center of gravity is further back and much lower in the back of the club, and this launches the ball up with very little spin. So you can tee it down low and not have to worry about the ball ballooning. It'll really have that penetrating ball flight with good roll coming out. But if you did want to carry that fairway bunker at the end, or you wanted to cut the corner, let me show you how we're going to do this. We're going to tee the ball high and let it fly, right? So notice how high that tee is. It's right above the top of my club face. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to play it right opposite my left big toe. Find the center of my stance, face the center. Now with that ball that far up in my stance, I'm going to need to aim just a tad more to the right, because I'm going to have a tendency to catch it as the club is coming back to the inside. It's going to be coming up and back to the inside. So you know that, have you noticed that your longest shots are the ones that you pull to the left? Well, this is a little bit like an intentional pull, okay? You can really launch the ball in this situation here. So for all you long drivers out there looking for those extra couple of yards, that little edge, this is it right here. So I'm going to line up the ball over the corner of this fairway. Going to line up slightly across the name of the ball, so it feels like I'm going a little more to the right. Play the ball right opposite the big toe of my left foot. So from there, you notice how the club is very much back from the ball. Club goes up, comes back down, and from there goes back up again, and I'll catch the ball on the upswing, and as the club is coming back slightly to the inside. So I can really launch the ball from this situation here. So if I'm playing in a scramble, I need that. I got somebody in the middle of the fairway, I want to go for it. This is how I do it, okay? Here we go. The sensation I'm looking for, however, is effortless, powerful momentum through that ball toward the corner of that fairway. Here we go. Oh, couldn't have done better. That was beautiful. Right over the corner. And I just picked up an extra 30 yards compared to my previous drive. That one's pretty much next to the green. So it's a big advantage if I'm looking to win a hole in an important match. If I want to, knock down the opponent a little bit, that's a great way to go about it. Or if I'm in a long drive competition, I really need that launch angle, and I want that big carry with the wind in the back. So you'll really enjoy this one. Let's have a look at the front just to see the setup from the front, and then we'll move on. Okay, so here it is from the front. So you notice how back I am here. Club goes up, comes back down. and from there goes back up, catches the ball in the upswing. So here we go. Effortless, powerful swat to the corner of that fairway over there. Here we go. Oh, another good one. Right over the corner. That's about 20 yards in front of the green. So that was about 330 right there. So I'm glad I was able to put on a show for you. Okay. Now, one of the shots that I want to show you, and I get a lot of questions on, is a fairway wood shot and how to hit this properly. Now, fairway woods, hybrids, driver off the deck, you know, all of your clubs, you are skipping the turf with the sole of the club. The skipping occurs as a result of a proper posture and as a result of you whipping the golf club or slinging or swatting the golf club efficiently and effortlessly. So I'm going to hit a little forward off the tee here. I just played it right off the deck because everything's plush. They haven't cut the tee-offs yet. So I've got my line. I've got the picture. So I'm going to hit this with a nice high draw. I'm going to take my practice swing. All I'm looking for is a nice, fluid, effortless whip. And I'm sure you heard that skip. So you notice it started right here at the ball and it skipped right through. That's one of the things that's fun about this, is you got a perfect skipping stone right here. The sole of the driver, the sole of the fairway wood, the hybrid, those are beautiful skipping stones. So I imagine I got a puddle right here in front of me. And I'm going to skip this stone across the puddle towards my intended target. So here we go. Effortless, powerful, whipping skip. Oh yeah. Nice drawing around that fairway bunker. And just a couple of yards in front of that green. So nice little short par. You know, they say the longest walk in golf is from the practice tee to the first tee, meaning that it's very different when you're on the driving range than when you go onto the golf course. So let's make it the same, shall we? After you've practiced, right, and you've had a nice little warm-up, it's time to play your favorite golf course in your mind. Use your imagination and play a nice golf course. So I'm going to play Richmond Hill Golf Club today, and the first hole calls for a driver for me. I'm going to be playing the shot a little bit left of the 150 marker, over the corner of the driving range, and that's going to give me a nice position for me to get into the green with a wedge. So I got my driver. I'm going to take my practice swing with the driver. Actually, I'm going to do a little perpetual motion here to really tell my brain, my central nervous system, hey, hello in there, there's a driver in my hands, okay. So now that I know and I feel that the driver swing is going to be a lot wider, I'm going to pick my target. So let's say I'm going towards my red flag. I'm going to pick a spot right here in front of the ball, about 2 feet, no more. A foot and a half to 2 feet in front of the ball. I got a nice leaf right here. And what I want to do is I want to send the energy of my swing over that leaf and toward the red flag. So when you're lining up, you're not lining up your feet or the club face and stuff like that. What you're lining up is the flow of your momentum. So all I want is for that nice, effortless, powerful, heavy momentum to go over that leaf and toward the red flag. That's it. So now, go to the ball. It's going to be a nice standard driver, ball just a bit above the top of the club head. Yep, feels really good. So now I have the red flag in my mind. My eyes are on the back of the ball, but all I see is a red flag. And I'm going to feel that nice momentum go towards that red flag. Here we go. Oh yeah. A little bit to the right of it, but that would put me in the right center of the fairway. And instead of taking a wedge into the green, that's going to leave me with a 9. Hi, Shawn Clement here with a show that many of you, I'm sure, have been waiting for. This is a show on the driver. So as you saw with the fairway woods, I have my 5-wood here. You could see how the design of the club is designed to hit the ball off the ground. Notice the height of the face of the driver, that's designed to hit the ball in the air on a tee. So there's a very specific setup for this, and once you understand how the setup works, you'll see that your driver is going to go a lot better, okay? If I had the ball sitting right here on the ground, like the fairway woods, I would keep the club in the center of my stance and play the ball just forward to center. The club would go up, weight shifts, then the club comes back down, catches the ball. Notice how much shallower the club comes in, catches the ball, catches the ground, and then goes up, okay? So when the ball's on the ground, that's the setup. Now the ball here is on a tee, and the right height, the appropriate height to get the most success out of your driver is where half the ball is above the top of the club head, okay? Because as you catch it slightly on the upswing, that's where you will catch the ball right here, just above the equator, and that's where the maximum spring effect of the club face is, okay? Now, because the ball is in the air, I play the ball off the forward foot, so right opposite my left instep, right? And the key here is to never face the golf ball. Many of you have been facing the golf ball, and this is opening your shoulders to the target line. So now your body is set up to swing across the ball, which will cause a side spin and make the ball curve to the right, the dreaded slice. Also, because now the ball is in the center of my sternum, the club goes up, comes down under the ball, and only comes up over here. So now the ball is popping into the air and going nowhere. So we don't want that either. So we want the center of the club and the center of the stance as usual, and we are centered with the golf club as usual, but the eyes are going to be on the back of the ball. So now the club's going to go up, come back down, and from there go back up again, and I'll catch the ball on the true upswing. So after I hit the shot, you'll notice the tee will probably still be in the ground because I'm hitting the ball. I'm not here to hit the tee, right? Good. Get centered with the golf club. Now I'm in a position to catch the ball on the true upswing. Now, as far as the swing is concerned, just so you understand that we have the longest club in the bag. If I had a wedge in my hands, it would be like pushing a kid on a very small swing set. It would look like this. Push, wait, push. So the cycle of momentum would be very short compared to the driver. The driver is like pushing a big kid on a big swing set. So it's more like push, wait, push. So it's a much longer cycle of momentum. You're going to have to listen to the momentum carefully, okay? So nice wide backswing, nice wide follow through to the target. You're letting gravity make the swing as wide as possible, but without trying to strain. You let gravity do all the work, okay? Now you'll notice that the back of the club, like the fairway wood, is designed so that it's rounded off and the club can glide along the ground. So the club is designed to stay along the ground for a while. So don't try to pick it up because you're cutting away at this very precious arc, okay? Feels like I'm going to catch it on the upswing. Okay, there we go. So what was that feel again? Oh yeah, that nice wide whip. Caught the ball on the upswing, solid contact, great balance. Notice how the tee is still there? So I'm catching the ball on the upswing. So you notice you shouldn't be breaking your tees. One last little tidbit of information. There's a line on every ball. You know the golf balls always have a name written on it? You have 18 opportunities for perfect alignment. So you take the name of the ball and you line it up to where you want to go, okay? So if I'm lining up the name of the ball when I put the ball on a tee, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the name of the ball and I'm going to line it up on the upswing. So I got a beautiful little arrow here. Line it up towards my target and make sure that the arrow is pointing slightly up. So I always have the feel that I'm going to catch the ball on the way up. So it's a great visual to help you with this. Enjoy. Okay, now that we know the basic move with the driver and the basic setup with the driver, we can start to be a little more creative. Now, not all of you will like to go with the standard setup for the driver. New technology today allows us to do many things with the driver. As you can see on the ground, I've got 3 different heights of tees. Now, if you've got a driver with a nice low center of gravity or a square driver where you feel very comfortable hitting the ball low and you enjoy hitting your fairway woods, well, then you might want to use this first option here where the ball is much lower. You can see that the center of the ball is in the center of the equator of the driver. And because the center of gravity of the driver is further back, I can still get some very good carry, not as much as if I play the ball further forward and higher on the tee, but this is more geared for the accuracy. If the sole of the golf club, the bottom of the club, skips nice and flat across the ground, then you'll notice that the ball flight will be quite straight, a little fade or a little draw. So I'm going to set up the club in the center of my stance, play the ball just forward of the club, stay centered behind the ball, and I'm going to hit this just like a fairway wood shot. So a nice wide whipping skip towards a specific target. I have a pine tree in my mind right now, so wide, nice skip across toward that pine tree. And the fun thing about titanium is you'll notice you can get some sparks coming off the bottom of this club. So I feel it. I feel that nice skip across the ground. Nice, effortless whipping skip toward the pine tree. All right. Nice and straight, little draw. Beautiful, right down the middle of the fairway. Now, you notice I hit the ground a little bit before the ball. This is fine with the driver. You'll notice that even sometimes you get it scuffed, the sole of the club will keep the driver going and you'll hit terrific shots. So all I'm focused on here is that nice wide skip across the ground. So because it's wide in the arc, it will not get caught in the ground, it'll keep going. It's the same thing with the fairway woods. So the result on that particular shot came off beautifully. Now I go a little higher. There's the standard drive. So a nice whip through to that pine tree again. Effortless. Oh man, that was beautiful. Well struck. Notice the tee is still in the ground. Terrific balance. More carry. I got about 15 yards more carry. So if I need to get over a sand trap in the or a corner on the fairway, you'll probably want to go with this. Now, you want to get even fancier. You do need a nice high face driver if you're going to hit the ball on a very high tee. Now that we play the ball forward, you'll notice that I got 2 options. You remember with the arc, as the further forward I get in the arc, the more the club is coming back to the inside. So if I play this ball opposite the big toe of my left foot, well now when I get to the ball, the club's coming back to the inside. So I'm going to have to aim a little more to the right for this one, okay? So I'm going to take my stance, aim more down the right side of the fairway, okay? So from this position here, the club goes up, comes back down, and from there goes back up again. Now you can see how the club's coming around the arc, and I'll catch the ball as that's coming back up and around the arc. The other option is I can just keep the same setup and float the club head in the air, right? So I know a lot of good pros who love to tee the ball high, but to hover the club on top right here and keep a standard setup, okay? So I'm going to show you the one that's going to put the ball very high downwind, play the ball more forward, aim a little more to the right, so you can see how I'm in a position to catch the ball on the way up. That feels good to me. Feels like I'm going down the right center of the fairway. Here we go. Effortless, powerful whip towards the target. So notice the tee came out, but that ball went much higher in its trajectory, okay? And this is where downwind I'm going to get big, big distance, all right? But this one takes a little bit of practice. So I hope you enjoyed that. So Shawn Clement here with a very important program on one of the clubs that you're going to need to set up your score, okay? This is going to get you close to the green on a par 5 and 2, or if you have a long par 4 or the long par 3s, you're going to be using these fairway woods a lot. Now the fairway woods are very, very similar to the hybrids, right? So we'll talk about the hybrids in the next segment, but you'll see that it's really exactly the same technique that we use. The sole plate of the club is much wider than with an iron, right? So this would simulate, remember we talked a lot about skipping stones before, right? Well, I have the ultimate skipping stone right here. So I'm going to take the sole of the club and I'm going to allow it to deflect firmly across the ground. So when I take my practice swing, you heard the sound? So I'm going to allow the sole of the club to really skip firmly across the ground. And don't be afraid to take a divot with this club, all right? So nice wide backswing. The sole of the club is rounded at the back. Because it's a longer club, it allows you a wider arc. The wider arc needs a much longer, wider takeaway off the get-go. So don't be afraid to hear the sole of the club drag along the ground as you go back. You'll hear a nice little friction with the grass. So it's going to, okay? And that's going to get you wonderful contact with the golf ball. So set up the club. I have a target in mind. That's that pine tree over there. So from here, a nice wide backswing and nice wide whipping skip toward that pine tree. Let's see if we can do it. Very solid shot. You could see a nice firm divot after the ball was struck. So the club came down, caught the ball, then skipped across the ground and then came up. You see how wide that arc was staying along the ground. There's the secret to these clubs. When you use a tee with the fairway wood, you want to go all the way down into the ground where just the very top of the tee is showing. Again, the clubs are designed to hit the ball off the ground. So if you tee it up too high, you're going to go right under the ball and your contact with the ball is going to be very bad, okay? So, same position. And because the ball is at that particular height, I'm focused on the same skip across the ground towards my target. So I got my target. I have the feel of that nice skip in my bones, right? Effortless, powerful whipping skip towards that pine tree. Nice balance. Now you notice right here, there's the tee. I caught the ball first, then I caught the ground, then the club continued towards the target. So there's a classic example on how to properly strike the golf ball or through the golf ball with a fairway wood. So we did a couple of sequences with the short irons. When you get to the driver, many of you get very much impatient because of how long this club is. The longer the club, the more you abandon to gravity and centrifugal force, all right? And the more your sequencing is important. So if we look at the difference between a short iron, which is what we were hitting before, and the driver, with a short iron, I'm pushing a kid on a baby swing set, right? So you remember when we were pushing with a child on a swing, so we're pushing on the way down. We're assisting existing momentum. So it's push, wait, push, wait, push. When we get to the longer clubs like the fairway woods, the long irons and the driver, now we're at a high school swing set. The chains are much longer and the sequencing lasts longer, right? So we gotta wait for momentum to perform its full cycle. So it's gonna be push, wait, push. You get the idea? Okay. So now let's look at a practice swing here with the driver with the heel coming off the ground. So you notice how long it took for me to plant the heel, and I had all this nice momentum once I planted the heel. Or with the heel on the ground. Out of the way, out of the way. So I want to feel like I'm really squatting the pressure into that forward leg well before those arms come through, okay? So let's do one right here. I'm going to do this with the foot on the ground, just a standard driver. So I've lined up the name of the ball to where I want to go. So left center of the fairway, which is basically going over right over the tee blocks here. I've got the feeling of a nice, well-performed sequence without any rush and without any force, so it feels very much effortless. And there we go. Over to the ball. So you notice how the ball, the equator of the ball is just a little bit above the equator of the club head. I don't have to do anything special for this. Keep my eyes in the back of the ball. And what was I trying to do again? Oh, yeah. My target's over there. I feel the weight of my arm club unit, and I'm going to wait for the cycle of momentum. Be patient. Very happy with that. Nice little power fade right back down the center of the fairway. Good. So let's look at if you had to hit a shot into the wind with the driver, and we tee it up a little lower. So I'm going to use the slope right back here to set up the practice swings I need to get the right feel for this shot. You can do this with your long irons, your short irons, and your driver, of course, all right? So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to set up on a downhill slope. Now you'll see how my weight is really off the inside of my left ankle. We're going to swing up the slope going back and whip down the slope coming through, and I really feel that brace. So once again, if you look at the sequencing, so it's heave up the slope, squat, and then whip back down the slope. You can see a very distinct squat to complete my backswing. So now if I come back here, I'm going to tee this ball lower, so equator to ball to equator of club. And this is going to feel very much like a one-leg swing. Club in the center, ball just forward of the club, just like a fairway would. Wind's in the face, so you notice how I'm cozying up to my left side. My right leg is very much a support post to keep me up against my leaning post. And I'm going to pretend this is a nice downhill shot. Effortless, powerful, heavy whip down the slope. Here we go. Oh, am I happy with that? Beautifully struck. Nice penetrating trajectory, right? And again, super balanced because I had the tremendous sequence before I whipped through that shot. Now, if I'm going up the slope, come on back here. Now I'm going to be taking my practice swing up the hill for that nice high trajectory. If I have the wind behind me, I need to carry some bunkers down the left side. So, pressure's on the inside of my back foot. And I'm going to whip the club up the slope, following the slope. So heave it, whip it up the slope. So I'm really feeling like I'm following that slope up there, and I got some great leverage to keep me up the slope. You notice how I'm finishing my swing. My left side is very solid, my right side is very solid, and I'm on my way to that target, okay? So if we were to tee up a nice high ball, and you notice how the tee deck here is very much on the upslope. I lined up the logo of my golf ball on the upslope. So same direction, I've got my spot, but now I'm going to pretend it's an uphill shot. So I'm using my right leg as better support. I'm still going to sequence into that left foot, so this is where I'm going to do the, for me, I do the heel off the ground. So it's, and then whip up the slope. So I really feel like I'm launching it on the uphill. So again, it's heavy momentum. Notice how I'm playing the ball right opposite my big toe, so I'm catching the ball on the upslope. So this setup really matches the picture I'm seeing out there, which is a really high ball flight. Here we go. Heavy arms, heave, plant, whip up the slope. Oh, just perfect. Just launched right up there, hit that right in the center of the club face. Beautiful balance because my sequence again was solid. Let's go to the next.
Hi guys.
Okay, two things today. This is Shawn Clement calling from the Richmond Hill Golf Learning Center. That's CENTRE. We're up here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's a wonderful January day out there, so it's a perfect time for me to talk to you about ball position and how that applies to all the clubs in the bag, especially with the driver. So there's a great driver tip in here for you. Now, notice I got 3 golf balls. Different heights, one right off the ground, one a little higher, and very high off the tee. Especially with these new drivers, the club faces are very, very tall, so that's why they tell you to play the tee as high as possible, at least to have at least half or 3/4 of the ball above the top of the face, so that you catch it on the upswing, and you'll understand what I mean in a second. So if I had a 6-iron in my hands, or any iron for that matter, what I basically want is for the club head to be in the center of my stance, and the ball just forward of that, meaning the ball in front of my club while it's in the center, okay? So, if I bring my arms together to take my grip, from there, from the center of my sternum, that's the lowest point of the arc of my swing, if that sternum is center, obviously, so from there everything goes up, comes back down, and from the bottom here goes back up again. So I want to catch that ball just before the club bottoms out. So I want the club to bottom out in the turf or against the ground, and I want to catch the ball first. I don't want to catch the ground and lay the turf over the ball. It'd be like putting a big pillow between the club face and the golf ball, and that'll seriously reduce my club head speed, and I don't want that. So I want to catch that ball first. If you watch the pros on tour, you'll notice as their club is bottoming out, it'll catch the ball first, continue coming down, bottom out right here in front of the ball, and then come up on the other side. So if you look at this, the reason why the club's in the center, the ball's forward of center, is because when we shift the weight, you'll notice I'm a little more braced on my left side coming into the ball. Notice now the bottoming out point has changed. Here my weight is evenly distributed between my feet. And you notice how nice and crisp that was. So that's great when the ball's on the ground. If I have a 3-wood or a driver, I want the center of the club to be in the center of my stance, and the ball just forward of that. Now, imagine I were to take my stance here with a ball on the ground, and now I put it on a tee. So the higher the ball goes on the tee, the more forward I need to play that ball on my stance, so I can catch it on the upswing. Now, the problem with that is, as soon as you play that ball more forward, you'll have a tendency to want to face the golf ball. So if I'm facing the ball, then the center of my sternum is now under the ball. That means the club is going to go up, come back down under the golf ball, and come back up over here, and I'll put some beautiful scratch marks on the top of my club head. That's no good. Also, when I'm facing the golf ball, my body is completely out of alignment. Shoulders and hips are going this way, feet are going in an opposite direction, so that's going to cause me to cut across the ball and impart a side spin on the golf ball, causing it to slice to the right. So all you slicers out there, I hope you're paying attention. So I want to basically keep the club in the center of my stance and just play the ball forward. Nothing wrong with this setup. I'm going to face my golf club to make sure my sternum is right here where the club's supposed to bottom out. And from there, the club can go up and catch the ball on the upswing. So here we go. Now I can catch that ball nice and solid on the upswing. If the ball is higher, I'll play it even more forward. So that looks like it's right out the big toe of my left foot. But again, I always want to start from center position. Notice how that looks like I'm going to catch it on the upswing. So club bottoms out here, then the club comes up, and I'll catch the ball on the way up. Now notice at the moment of impact how my shoulders, hips, knees, and feet are all in the same line, therefore causing the ball to go nice and straight. Now here we go. Another solid hit. So you notice how I'm catching that ball on the upswing? It's like an uppercut, okay? So I hope that was good information for you. Go ahead and start practicing that, and you'll see a big difference in the way you hit the golf ball, especially with that driver. Have fun with it. Okay. So Shawn Clement here from the Richmond Hill Golf Learning Center. And this is an addendum to the great driver tip video, which is already a couple of years old. My, how time flies. So the original video was to have the older drivers in mind. So you notice how the older drivers had much deeper faces. This is a Cobra driver from a couple of years ago. And because of the deep face and the high face, we had to tee the ball very high, so we went to the store and bought those super long tees. And then we were told that we want to hit the ball very high in the face by all the manufacturers to get the maximum trampoline effect. So already this required a tremendous amount of precision from an already difficult club to swing with. So now that the manufacturers have come out with the latest drivers, this is a Titleist D2 driver. It's already a couple of years old, but they've maintained the same design in the last couple of years, and only recently they've come out with a new design. And the later designs have a club face that goes, or club head, pardon me, that goes much further back, much wider in the head, and shallower in the face. So what this does is it takes the center of gravity and brings it back and lower into the club head. So you get the high launch, but you don't get the high spin, which is ideal for long rolling, long carry and far rolling drives. So I'm going to demonstrate, with the older technology. And for all you traditionalists out there and good players, I would recommend you keep one of these on hand at all times. It's a lot of fun to hit, and it's great for a backup driver. And then you'll see the difference. Notice how high I tee up this ball. So you basically only want the equator of the golf ball, center of the golf ball, slightly above the equator of the club face. Okay? So that's how you want to tee it up. And you could easily tee it up that low. The trend on tour you will see is a much lower teed golf ball, and even Woody Austin just tees it right off the deck, okay? So because these drivers are much easier to hit the ball off the ground. And that is basically like a 15th club in the bag when it comes to hitting the ball off the fairway. So without further ado, let's go for the demo. So as a quick review, right, and just to explain my focus when I've got a ball teed up this high. What you would like to do is have a few tees up on deck if you hit off natural grass, tee them nice and high, and practice just clipping the top of the tee. So if I take this ball off the tee, and I'm taking practice swings, so you remember we play the ball forward in the stance, right off the big toe, play the club in the center of the stance, center ourselves with the club so that the club goes up, comes back down, and from there catches the ball on the upswing, okay? So I get the high launch and the low spin. If I sit down on the golf ball, then I got low launch with high spin. The ball will just balloon up and roll nowhere. It just lands, and you'll actually see on a soft fairway, it'll have backspin on it. So I want very little spin and very high launch. This is how we would go about doing that with an older, deep face driver, okay? So I'll take my practice swing, and I want to feel like I'm going to catch that ball on the upswing, which is exactly what that felt like. I got my target out there. All right, so I want to feel a nice whip catching the top of the tee on my way to my target out there. So here we go. Nice high launch, right down the middle of the fairway. Still in the air, just landing right now. Very happy with that drive. And all that happened there is I just caught the tee. All right? So the tee is still intact. If you're breaking your tees, you know you're hitting down on it. If you're catching it on the upswing, and if the tee is into the ground, it won't move. It'll move just slightly forward maybe, but you shouldn't break the tee, okay? So now let's look at the other options that the latest drivers are opening up for us, which are a lot of fun, okay? Because you can hit it off the deck. Okay, so if you notice the tees, how I have them up. I've got one ball off the fairway, one ball on a short tee for when I got the wind in the face and I want to keep the ball low, or if I got, you know, running fairways that I want to take advantage of. And then I've got my higher teed ball, which is basically half the ball on top of the top of the club head. So I'll catch it slightly on the upswing to get that maximum carry, but without ballooning it, okay? So these are the three options that you'll have with the modern driver. So let's have a look at those. And let's look at how we would focus through these shots, okay? So when the ball's off the deck, what I'm looking for is a nice whipping skip. When you look at the Fairway Woods video, right, you'll see I'm looking at the sole of the club, or if you go to the clay pigeon shooting video, the sole of the club deflecting across the ground. Hear that nice sound? So I felt that nice deflection across the ground, center the club in the center of my stance, the ball forward of that, and all I want is to whip and skip towards that nice target I got out there, which is in the distance is a beautiful hydro pole. Okay? So here we go. Whip and skip to the hydro pole. Bingo. Right down the middle of the fairway. So this is perfect if you have a long par 4 into the wind or a nice par 5 into the wind. You want to get there in 2. No trouble in front of the green. You can roll it up there. That's a lot of fun. Number 2, low drive to the center of the fairway. Same exact focus. Now the ball will hit a little higher on the club face, get a little bit more of that spring-like effect off the club face, and we're going to get a little higher launch, but again, nice control, nice penetrating trajectory. So again, center of the club in the center of my stance, looking for that whipping skip toward that hydro pole. Here we go. Beauty. So a little higher ball flight, a little more carry right there down the right center of the fairway. You notice I didn't catch the tee. I caught the ball just slightly on the upswing. And now if we go to the third ball, notice how half the ball is on top of the club head. Now I'm going to play that ball right opposite my left instep and catch the ball ever so slightly on the upswing. And here, instead of a firm skip with the turf or the ground turf, I'm looking for a graze of the grass. So I'm going to graze the grass. Hear that sound? A nice graze across the grass out to the middle of the fairway. Here we go. So the focus of the feel is grazing across toward those hydro poles. Not bad. Left center of the fairway. So those are the three kinds of solutions that you have with your driver. All right? So if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so a couple of final tidbits as far as striking the ball or working the golf ball. If you go back to the Be a Solid Ball Striker video and you remember how we worked with the arc line, and understanding how the club face stays square to the arc line depending on where you had the ball position. So if we, let's say, played the ball center or slightly back of center with the driver, and with a square face in relation to the arc line, we would definitely push the ball to the right. Well, if you do this on a consistent basis, well, why not aim left and push the ball straight down the middle of the fairway. It worked extremely well for Lee Trevino. So, and this is something I tend to do a little bit. I prefer to aim a little bit down the left center of the fairway and either push it straight down the middle or play a nice little fade to the center of the fairway. That suits me extremely well on my right-handed swing. My left-handed swing, you'll see, is the other option. So what I'm going to do is aim right down the left side of the fairway. All right, so let's say there's the center of my stance. I'm playing the ball back in my stance. So you can see how my stance line is way left, but yet with the ball center, slightly back of center, and the club square to that arc line, you can see that ball is going straight down the middle of the fairway. Ooh, caught that really well too. So basically right center of the fairway, that looked terrific. Now if I did the opposite, if you remember Peter Jacobsen, he used to look like he aimed way down the right side of the fairway, but yet pulled his shots to the center of the fairway. Well, that's because he played his golf ball a little more forward in the stance. And being more forward in the stance, as I follow the arc, now the club returns to the inside after squaring up center, and I'll tend to pull the shot. So I'll aim right down the bush line here. So you can see that looks like I'm going toward the bush. And then when my club stabilizes and returns to the inside, this ball should go straight down the middle. Here we go. So we have another ball going straight down the middle. That one is left center. Ooh, nice kick, right down the center of the fairway. So I hope that helped in allowing you to understand, you know, how you can set up to match your tendencies. I'd like you to try both of these and let me know how it goes, okay? So if you're a backhander, you'll probably be like me, you like to play the ball further forward, have the club face a little more closed. And if you're a forehander, you'll tend to play the ball a little more back in the stance and play the club face a little more open, especially if you tend to draw or have a strong draw in your shots, okay? And let me finish here with a little situation on how to help you guys. I know many of you who tend to hit the irons really well, but don't hit the woods well. And some of you hit the woods very well and struggle with the irons. Well, that's because you'll notice, especially if you go to my Golf Pro Lesson swing plane video, you'll see how the wedge and the driver are very different length, very different shape of club head. The reason why this is rounded and wide is so it can follow that wide arc, versus this is narrow and on the bottom, and the shafts are shorter because it matches more of a downward angle of attack. So if you struggle with the irons and hit the woods well, I'd like to see you practice with the ball below your feet. Now you have to secure yourself through the ankles or the heels, be more forward in the chest, and this will create a more upright swing, okay? Whereas, and you'll see this in the On the Slopes video, so check on Golf Pro Lesson On the Slopes, and my DVD's got all this information. And if you look at, if you're striking your irons really well, but you tend to pop fly the woods or you cut across the woods, then you want to practice with the ball above your feet. This will give you a much flatter swing plane, okay? More like the single plane swing versus the two plane swing. You'll see in my swing plane video how we iron all that out for each shot and each club. So we swing the club back and through, and we let everything iron itself out to that particular lie. So if you can swing the club with the ball above your feet without gouging the ground, you're doing fine. Then take it back up to the tee box, and because the ball is on a tee, pretend it's slightly above your feet in this situation and swing, get the same feel that you experienced here with the ball above your feet, okay? So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll talk to you later. Hey, Shawn Clement here from the Richmond Hill Golf Learning Center. Today we're in kill mode, right? We're going to be reapplying the great driver tip Now, obviously with a little bit better audio, I got my black microphone instead of my silver microphone so you guys don't think I'm a priest. So, here we go. Now, I've just set up a nice little door frame here, a mock door frame right in front of the ball. If you go back to my Golf Pro lesson, Feel and Let the Hammer Through, as well as my Golf Pro lesson, Feel Your Swing Plane, we're talking about using the weight of the hammer to release itself through the door frame and towards a specific target. Now, this got me into the right frame of mind to find my exact ball position with my driver. I've got a new Ping driver, the I-15, and I realized that because of the width of the head, it actually moved my ball position a little more forward, unbeknownst. So if I play, here's how you do it. If I play the ball too far forward, and I get into position here, and don't worry about what you see right now, I'll explain the setup in a little bit if you haven't seen my Golf Pro lesson, Great Driver Tip. So I'm getting into position to use the weight of my hammer to compress that ball into the door frame. So if I'm too far from the ball, and I use the weight of my arm club unit, you notice it's going to bottom out right about here, and the rest of the distance I'm going to have to lunge after it. If I play the ball too far back in my stance, now I've been playing my ball just a little inside my left instep, even for my draw. And so if I look at this position here and I do the weight of the hammer against the door frame, you'll notice now this feels really solid, really good, but the club face is a little too open at this point, and that's going to tend to squirt the ball out to the right. So I got a couple of choices here. If to the right is not where I want to be, I'm going to tend to have to reach back. So I'm going to have to reach back to get to the golf ball, and if I reach back too far, I'm going to tend to hook it and fall back. If I don't reach back, then I'm going to squirt it out to the right. So I figure, okay, I bombed a few out to the right rough, and I figure, okay, I'm just going to aim down the left side and bomb it down the middle of the fairway. Well, when everything's going well, that works. When it doesn't, then I start kissing the left side of the fairway a little too much. Now, the ideal ball position for me with this club is right here. So you notice it's right off my big toe of my left foot. This really feels here like I can use the weight of that hammer to pin it up against the door frame. I feel extremely balanced. And what this did for me was give me the opportunity to really put an assertive swing on it. So using the weight of the hammer. And I've got just tremendous balance in my finish. That was my first swing of the day with the driver, and you can see how bolted I am to the ground. Everything came through with mass, with weight. I didn't force it. I am assisting the weight, the momentum of my swing. I'll give you one more here. Nice. Feel the weight of that arm club unit. This is so important. It's like heaving an axe. You need to feel its weight. My eyes are on the back of the ball, not on the club head, okay? And my focus is on the release of the hammer out here. So I know that when I use the weight of my arm club unit to pin that ball against the door frame, there's through the door frame, and there's where the release occurs. There's where the snap is, okay? So I'm looking at the back of the ball, but my attention is way out here in letting the weight of that hammer snap itself. So here we go. And that just feels so solid. I can really rip the club. So I feel like I've got my best drive 100% of the time now, which is a good thing. So now if we look at the setup, the reason why I'm setting up the ball here, you watch this. I'll put the door frame back in here. And this is what most of you will tend to do. You play the ball forward in your stance, and then you go face the ball. So you notice that this position here with the door frame, it looks like I'm going to bend the nail to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my hands forward. Look familiar? So now, My hands are forward. It looks like I'm going to nail it into the door frame, but I'm still brushing across, because if you look at my shoulders, they're way open to my target line, all right? Way open to the target itself. So like a soccer kicker or a football kicker, if I brush across the ball this way, the soccer ball is going to tend to curve to the right. So if I open my shoulders, because the ball is forward, and then I try to square it up with my hands, I am in a very awful position to swing a driver. And this is why a lot of you have trouble with that driver. So what I want to do is I want to find the center position here, let everything hang. This is what Mo used to do, Mo Norman. 91% fairways hit in regulation, lifetime average. How's that? So from this position here, eyes are on the back of the ball. I'm feeling the weight of the hammer, using the weight of the hammer to compress that ball into the door frame. Now look at my impact position. Hips are open, shoulders slightly open, feels like I'm going to tag that ball straight into that door frame, and everything feels extremely powerful and accurate. All right? So, do not face the ball, face the center of the stance, feel that weight, then use that weight to crush it. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, let me know. Stay tuned for the next video. Hey guys, how are you? Shawn Clement again here from beautiful Richmond Hill Golf Club here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And there's been a lot of talk about this one plane, two plane stuff. And I want to clear this thing once and for all for you guys with the help of ball and tether. Real simple. If I just give the ball to gravity, and just let gravity place it through inertia and centrifugal force, I will have a certain plane. And if I change the angle of my arm, it's going to swing on a different plane. So if I have a pitching wedge and I swing this club back and through without stopping, and I just give the club to gravity, it's going to swing itself on a certain plane. Now you remember we talked about axis of rotation. If I tilt my axis forward, it's going to swing on a much more upright plane. If I tilt my axis back, it's going to swing on a shallower plane. So if my axis is intact, meaning the head slightly behind the ball and the tailbone slightly in front, and I swing the club back and through without stopping, I give my club to gravity. Notice how the club is passing in the same spot every time, and how it's swinging itself down the line. You notice I'm not too upright and I'm not too flat. For my personal body and my genetics, this particular pitching wedge needs to swing on that plane. If I take a 5-iron and I swing the club back and through without stopping using the same axis, you'll notice that the club is passing on a slightly shallower plane. The longer the club, the more gravity is going to deploy it away from me and shallow out the plane. And if I go to my driver and do the same thing, giving it to gravity, notice how gravity's passing the club in a very different spot. Therefore, my hands cannot be in the same position with the driver as they are with the wedge. Notice where my hands are here. So you'll notice as I'm swinging back and through without stopping, my body has to stay in balance for this to happen. And you'll see how gravity will do the rest. So you need to abandon the club to gravity and stop trying to control it and manipulating it on a certain plane that you think is adequate. Let gravity do that job. Many of my students have the sensation of losing control. Yes, you're giving control away to gravity and letting gravity do the work for you. So I hope this was insightful and it answered a few of your questions. If you have any more questions on this subject, please let me know. I'll see you in a bit. Bye. Good morning, Shawn Clement here from the Richmond Hill Golf Learning Center. Today we have a nice lesson on swing plane. Now, the whole truth and nothing but the truth and all that stuff, there's been a few details withheld, unfortunately, because you've got two options how to swing the club. It could be the pit bull and the ragdoll, which means the arms are controlling the club throughout the swing, or it could be the seasoned lumberjack with that heavy axe, which means lumberjack uses weight of axe to perform the task. He is not manipulating, pushing, or shoving the axe around and fighting fighting momentum and wearing himself out. So it's the same thing here in golf. As I said all along, you are using gravity and centrifugal force to track your arms. So the relationship between you and this planet is you give control away. And a lot of my students say, I'm losing control of the club. Woo-hoo-hoo, this is great. When you feel that, you know you're on the right track. If you totally lose control of the club, that's completely different. Now, if your grip stays intact and you swing in the club back and through without stopping, you'll notice how, wow, my hips, knees, shoulders, hands, everything's flowing together. I stop moving. I become static. I want to start swinging again. Inevitably, you're always going to tend to take the club away with your hands, and that's where you have way less of a chance to perform a good golf swing than if you were to start from an already going position, all right? So that already going position is my perpetual motion drill. So when I'm swinging back and through without stopping, you're going to observe that when gravity and centrifugal force grab a hold of the club, the plane for that particular shot becomes proper. So I've got a lob wedge in my hands. Now, where you're really going to identify that the club is truly on plane is when you're brushing the grass in each direction past the point of the ball. So if this were the golf ball here, and I'm skipping back and through, notice how I'm skipping on this side of the ball on the way back, and I'm skipping on this side of the ball into my backswing, right? So follow through, backswing. Now, if you're hitting the ground before the ball coming down, you're probably way too shallow. Or you're pushing with your hands and you haven't given up control yet, all right? So go to my arms and body timing and my stop crashing videos. That'll really clear things up for you, okay? I can't give you the whole ball of wax right here. But what I can give you is when you allow gravity to take control and you let the sole of the club brush the grass in each direction. I got a humdinger of video coming up for you next week. I just have to pick up a few things at the hardware store that I have on order. And we're really going to have a great time. So here we go. I let it swing back and through and let it brush. Let it brush. Let it brush. If it's not coming down, it means it's not going up. Now, just like a washing machine, right? Your perfect analogy here. The washing machine spins. The energy propels the clothing to the perimeter of the machine. The clothing gets stuck on the walls. The water can get sucked out of the clothing through the holes in the walls. As I allow my arms to fall and the body turns out of the way, my arms are going to get pulled away from the body. When they do, the arms levitate upwards. So do not prevent this from happening. This is going to be your loss of control sensation. For somebody who keeps holding on to the control of the arms, Bubba Watson doesn't experience this. Tiger might right now. Okay, so when he's swinging back and through, let the arms swing, let the arms swing, let the arms levitate, let the arms levitate. So you notice, as I'm swinging back and through, the club skipping the ground, that doesn't look too high, too low, too upright, and it certainly doesn't look manipulated. If I go to a longer club, we go up the ladder here, 7-3 driver. This is where you're going to notice that if you allow the arms to swing freely, out of the way, out of the way, out of the way, out of the way. Maybe just a little further away, out of the way, out of the way. There we go. Look where my hands are now. With the wedge, they were down here. With the driver, they're out here. As I'm swinging back and through, if I had an 80-inch long driver, I'd be out here. If I try to keep my hands in the same place under my shoulders, gravity's going to pull this way. I'm going to have to pull back against gravity to hit the ball. Now I'm really manipulating, holding on, not allowing momentum to do my work. So when you get to the longer clubs, you like a 5 and your 3-iron and your fairway woods, you have to allow your arms to pre-deploy at address, okay? Now, this is not reaching. That is reaching. Notice how much the center of gravity of my body has been compromised. Get the center of gravity back, pre-deploy the arms out, now allow the arms to swing back and through without stopping. Let it brush, let it brush, let it brush, let it brush, let it brush. I know my swing's on plane. Perfect. Okay? So, before hitting a specific shot, I'm going to go to a 7-iron. I want to hit a little draw. I'm going to start a little right of the target, bring it back towards the target. So I'm going to start it down the rough line and bring it back to the flagstick. I've got an intermediate point right here, right, with some trampled grass. So, a way to align yourself now is allow gravity to swing the club back and through. Yeah, I just found the distance between me and the ball. Bring that to the ball. Does that feel like the momentum wants to go along that line all by itself? Yes, it does. All right. Now let it go. Who's hitting this ball? Oh yeah, gravity is. Ha ha! Beautifully struck. Woo, am I ever happy with that one. Look at this divot. That felt so flush and pure. So before you hit each shot, really feel what the swing plane is going to be when you let it happen. How's that for a concept? And then you'll see a lot of amazing results start to happen on the golf course. So the little drill I always use, if I go to my lob wedge now, I do a little perpetual motion back and through again. Now the brain says, oh, we have a lob wedge in our hands. That feels a little different. Bring this over. Going over there, little draw, let it go, out of the way, out of the way, out of the way. Superb contact. Oh, that felt good. A foot from my line, okay? Another perfect divot. So now, fairway wood. Back and through without stopping. Out of the way, out of the way, out of the way. There's my line. Bring it in. Yes, still got my line. Still going there. Who's hitting the shot? Not me. That's gravity's job. Here we go. Out of the way, out of the way, out of the way. Watch it, birdie. Really well struck. Started right down the mid, down the right center, back toward the right side of the green. So you notice now, no divot with the fairway wood, but really solid contact. So I'm brushing the grass beautifully, which means I'm on the plane that I should be on. Okay? Enjoy that, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, Shawn Clement here from the Richmond Hill Golf Learning Center with an episode that I know many of you have been waiting for. I know a lot of you appreciated the working the ball video when we're using the arc to fade and draw the ball, and many of you finally understood that never try to hit a straight shot. Now, I've had a lot of questions regarding, well, how do you position the ball as far as working the driver? Now, obviously, because the ball is on a tee and that club head is a lot wider, we need to play the ball a little more forward than usual. And this goes also with the hybrid and the fairway woods. Basically, you want the club to be in the center of your stance and the ball just forward of that for a draw, and a half ball to a full ball width forward of that, closer to the front instep for the fade when the ball's on the ground. Now we pick it up from there with the driver, and we're going to play the ball just inside the left instep, about a ball width forward of where I would be, where the club is center and the ball's forward of the club. So I'm going to be starting with a draw here. So just inside left instep for the draw, and right on the left instep for the fade, because we want the ball a little more forward in the arc, and that's where we're going to be catching it as the club is coming back to the inside. But we don't want it outside of our structure. You'll notice that when I get outside the structure, now I'm starting to lunge and I'm starting to become out of balance. It's going to be very difficult for you to stay in balance once that ball is past the forward instep, okay? So starting with the draw. So from this angle, you'll notice how if on this particular fairway, I'm going to take it toward the tree line and draw it back toward the fairway. If it stays straight, the fairway kind of goes a little bit to the right, so I'll be in the right rough, I'll be just fine. So I line up the name of the ball in the direction I want my ball to end up, okay? This is really important, so that you always know to what extent you're brushing across the ball, all right? So I've lined it up down the middle of the fairway here. That's where I want to end up. And I set up with that. I'm going to play the ball just inside the left instep and get behind the ball. Now it feels like I'm going to be catching the ball a little bit more from the inside to the outside here, and I'm going to close the face ever so slightly. So I'm going to close the face maybe 2-3 degrees, all right? So from this position here, it feels like I'm going to hit a very high draw that's going to start toward the tree line and turn back toward the fairway, all right? So just inside the left instep, get behind. Now it feels like it's going to be a very high draw. Then I'm just going to go ahead and let the action go into that picture. So I'm going to swing the club to the right tree line nice and effortlessly. Start at the tree line, drawing back just a little bit through the fairway on the left-hand side, but I'm very happy with that. So that had the flavor I was looking for, and there's no trouble for me. I'm just in the left rough, I'm fine. So if we look at the fade, now I'm going to be playing the ball opposite the left instep. I've also lowered the tee. All right, with the draw, I'm hitting it a little bit higher on the tee because I'm getting it much more on the upswing. With the fade, I'm playing it low because I'm going to be playing the ball forward, and I'm going to keep the driver just behind the ball and face the driver. So I'm still behind the ball. It's really important. You never want to feel like you're facing the golf ball in a position to get out in front of the golf ball. So all of these shots, you are behind the ball. So now, with the ball forward and me facing the club more, it feels like I'm going across the line of that ball to the left. So I'm looking down the left side of the fairway. There's a 150 marker there. I'm going to start the ball toward the 150 marker and fade it back toward the center of the fairway and shape the shot into the middle of that fairway. So, effortless whip toward that white stake, and the club face is just a hair more open than usual. Right at the white stake, curving right back into the fairway. Ooh, that was good. So now I've got two solid shots with the driver. Second one is left center of the fairway in perfect shape. The first one just left rough, and I'm in good shape there to get my birdie or my par. Hope you enjoyed that.